Hey, welcome back to Late Night with Larry. And tonight we're going to talk about 80's rock. That's something that's near and dear to us. I'm a prodigy of the 80's. That's my generation. Had the best music, at least I believe so. What do you think, Vince?
Oh, man, it was great. We grew up in it, and I'm a product of it, the 80's. You know, it's all about excess and having a good fucking time. And, you know, on that note, since we're talking about 80's music and all the excess and the debauchery and all the crazy shit, I'm going to have a little beer while we're talking about that. How about that?
Hey, that sounds good to me. Chug away, man. Chug away. And it looks like you're drinking Coors Light over there.
Man, I love this Coors Light because it's good. It's just good. It goes down smooth. And, you know, we're here in New Mexico. They have these microbreweries that pop up everywhere, and they have all this fucking crazy beer now. And, you know, it tastes good, but it's strong as fuck. It's like, to me, it's like hangover in a glass, though.
It is. And, you know, when I drink beer, I do drink the Coors Light, too, but I'm a wine drinker. I like,
why no?
I like Merlot, yes. I'm a wino.
Yes, he is Merlot the Magician.
That's right. So, speaking of debauchery and drinking, we're going to get it on with some of the bands. And one of the drinking bands that I know who drank all the time would be Motley Crue.
Motley Crue is one of the most famous. They're just fucking, their antics they were off the wall. But you know what? They had some of the best music, and the content of the music, they had a good beat. They had great musicians. And the lyrics, it was something we could all relate to, and I think that's why they were so big.
I think so, and you're right. I mean, and we'll dissect a couple of just the Crue songs. So when I was in high school, I remember I was maybe a sophomore, and the Too Fast for Love CD came out.
Yes.
And I saw that, you know, we're growing up in the 80's, you know, the Reagan era, Nancy Reagan, don't just say no to drugs. But when I saw the album cover, and it had the picture of the leather pants and the little pentagram, I was like, holy shit, these guys gotta be wild.
Yes, I remember I was in mid school when I was first introduced to that on cassette.
Right.
And now it fucking blew me away. They had a great sound, and they were trying to do the punk thing, but they kind of created a whole new era. You know, some people call it glam, hair metal, they call it arena rock, whatever, but to me, it was good rock and roll, and through the decades and the times, rock and roll, it does change, but it's still rock and roll.
Right, and I remember just hearing the opening of the album, that guitar, they had such a different sound, you know, too fast for love, baby. I'm like, I was blown away by that album. It was something that I said, I want to be part of this.
Yes, and that kind of opened up a whole can of worms for us as far as rock and roll, and because we even to go back a little further, we were into Kiss.
Right.
That was our first concert, Kiss, back in the day. Our dad took us. I was young. I was 7. I don't remember the details if we begged them or what, but I remember him and my uncle. They took us and our cousins, and it was just a fucking mind-blowing experience. And from that day, I remember I'm like, holy shit, there's something to this rock and roll music.
Yeah, I was a little older, and yeah, we did beg them. We said, hey, we want to go see Kiss. They're coming to Albuquerque. You know, and they did take us. I think I was 11. It was 1976. So, yeah, I was.
Yeah, we don't have to give away how old we really are.
That's right. Now, yeah, but I remember, yeah, and we looked forward to going to that concert. We got there when those lights went out and Kiss hit the stage. I was like, this shit is magical.
Yes, and any of you have seen Kiss, you know they have some great music, but they're such good entertainers. Their fucking stage show is always on point. It's just great.
Yeah, it was, and you know, and we're just Detroit Rock City would come on, but I remember when Peter Criss sang Beth, it was like that whole stadium just got quiet, and I was like, yeah. From that moment on, ladies, I wanted to be a rock star.
Oh, yeah. I think we all did, you know.
Everyone secretly wants to be a rock star, you know. And that's what really got me interested in wanting to learn to play the guitar. But back to the Crue. I mean, that first album, Too Fast for Love, you know, had some of the greatest songs that just like sucked me in.
Yes.
And then they came out with the second album, which was even fucking better to me anyway. Shout at the Devil.
Right. It was heavier. It was more in your face.
It definitely was, and they were basically telling the conservatives of the 80s, "Fuck you."
Right.
You know, the video with they're like, oh, they're all satanic and da-da-da. Yeah, well, it was just some wild-ass motherfuckers having a good time.
Basically, they were going to do it on their terms,
Right.
and it fucking worked for them.
Well, in that opening, you know, where they plugged the voice for Shout at the Devil.
In the beginning.
Yep, in the beginning. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, that album just took it to a whole different level.
And not to get off track here, but it's funny because if you remember reading The Dirt, when Nikki Sixx was talking about writing "Shout at the Devil," it was gonna be called "Shout with the Devil."
Right.
But then he started having some paranormal experiences that freaked him out.
Right.
So that's why they changed it to "Shout at the Devil."
Right. He's like, no, wait, maybe I better not do that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's a little dark. So.
Yeah, and not to get off subject, but the Dirt and the Heroin Diaries, man, Nikki Sixx has been through some shit, and not only growing up, once he was successful, he continued to put himself through some shit. He's lucky to be alive.
He is. I mean, look, he's overdosed twice?
Yeah, died twice.
Died twice. I'm like, you know, it's like you're like a cat. You better count your lives because you're spending them quicker than you can buy them. I guess.
Right.
But anyway, they were such great musicians, and I mean, we've seen them live several times. You know,
yeah, we've seen Vince Neil solo several times. We've seen 6 a.m. They're just, you know what? They're a great bunch of guys. They bring it, but they have I don't know, it's like a cocktail. When they're together, they're the best, I believe.
It is, you know, and we're not talking, they're not like the best musicians as far as like the guitar playing. It's not all structured and I guess you would call it by theory and learned. It's just playing from the heart. You know, Mick Mars just goes out there and he's a fucking great guitar player, you know. He's not a graduate from the Berklee School of Music, and I'm not saying that there's, you know, something wrong with graduating from Berklee. I mean, if I could have, I would have. But
exactly.
But just the way it's the chemistry.
That's it. And you could have like some of the 4 best musicians in the world, and they come together, and if they don't click, it ain't gonna be good. But these guys, I mean, Vince Neil, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. He kills it in the studio. Live, Vince Neil likes to party. He likes to get fucked up. You know, that he's not the best vocalist, but something about those 4 when they get together and make music, it's fucking badass.
It's magical. It is. And that's why they've sold millions of albums. They sell out tours worldwide.
Right.
And it's chemistry. They got it.
Yep. And we saw The Dirt. The Dirt was great. I mean, they left out a lot from the book, but you know, you can only do so much in 2 hours.
Yeah. And back to the album Shout at the Devil, you know, that album, those songs just reinforced why I wanted to be a rock star.
Right.
And, you know, Too Young to Fall in Love. And you know, we saw the videos on MTV, and that even reinforced it more. It's like, these guys are badass.
You know, one of my favorite songs was off the Shout at the Devil record. And I don't know, it's maybe because I'm a pig or whatever. It's 10 Seconds to Love. You know, that kind of model my life after that, you know. Right.
Was that on Shout? That was on.
No, that was on Shout at the Devil. Yeah.
I was thinking that was on Too Fast for Love.
No.
Oh yeah, and then the third album, fucking Dr. Feelgood.
No. The third album was Theater of Pain. Remember,
that's right.
Vince Neil went through his thing, and they kind of cleaned up their image.
Yeah, and you know why I went to Dr. Feelgood, because Theater of Pain kind of wasn't their best album.
Right. Did you ever see Eddie Trunk when he interviewed Vince Neil? He asked Vince Neil, what is your least favorite Motley Crue album? And he told him, and you can't say the one you weren't on.
Right.
But Vince Neil said it was Theater of Pain, because he felt that a lot of the content was weak. It's just that they had Smoking in the Boys' Room and Home Sweet Home that carried it.
Right. And he's right, because you know what, that wasn't, I bought the album, but it wasn't my best.
You know what, but there was some songs, man, I loved on there, like Louder Than Hell.
Yeah, it was, but here's my thing. You hear Too Fast for Love, you hear Shout at the Devil.
Right.
I said, okay, now you got corporate America in your ear wanting you to get radio play. So it kind of, they watered down the sound a little bit.
And that was a lot of it. And that was like almost the pinnacle when they were getting fucking drunk, fucked up every night doing drugs.
Right.
So they did what they were told, I think, at that time.
Right. And even though it's not their strongest album, it's still sold.
It still sold. And then after that came Girls, Girls, Girls.
Yeah, that one I said, now here comes the energy again.
Right. And that was really good.
Yeah.
And that was actually a precursor to Dr. Feelgood, because that was quite a successful tour, quite a successful album. And then Dr. Feelgood came out. I believe that was their most successful album in tour.
Well, that I think that album's what really grabbed me. And, well, no, Girls, 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 because I was like, oh, here we go, Cruise Back.
But see, I was a true Crew fan since I heard the first track off Too Fast for Love.
Well, I've always been a Crew fan too, and but there were times where I was like, oh, where are they going? But most of their albums, they're just badass. The bass line on Dr. Feelgood, Nikki Sixx killed it. That opened that boom boom. Oh man!
But by that point, they had all matured, not only musically but in their lives, and a lot of the drug abuse was, I think, at that point, trying to put it behind them and stuff, right. And they were focused more on the music, and you could tell
they were growing up. They were all getting married, having families.
Yeah, and when they're younger, they have all that money thrown at them. We would have probably done the same thing.
I'd probably been dead.
Yeah, true that.
Yep. I would have been dead. Whiskey and whores, and whores.
Exactly.
but they're one of the all-time greatest bands.
And then they made some more albums. It's hard to repeat the success they've had on Dr. Feelgood, but they made a few albums. They were good. They're good. They did some solo stuff, and of course they did the Motley Crue album without Vince Neil.
Right.
And there's a lot of mixed emotion on that. And I listened to it I tried not to judge, with or without Vince Neil, and it's some good music. Now, if they would have said maybe like a Nikki Sixx side program or side project, it would have done a lot better.
Right.
But it was billed as Motley Crue, and you just can't take Vince Neil out of the mix.
See, and I'll be honest, the albums that didn't have Vince Neil in the mix, I didn't buy them. I mean, I still heard the songs, and I thought, oh, this is good music. But
right. I did, because I was just a fan of Nikki Sixx, and like I said, it was good music. John Corabi, he's great.
Right.
But a lot of the fans, they didn't want it without Vince Neil.
All right, and that was me, because I thought, no, the magic was with these.
But then eventually Vince Neil came back, and eventually they came out with Saints of Los Angeles.
Yes.
And that was just fucking killer.
That is correct. I heard that song, Saints of Los Angeles, and I'm like, yeah, these guys are.
Yeah, and I don't know, we probably can't even count the times we've seen Motley Crue live.
No, I know. So if you're hearing, you guys could kick us some albums, some swag,
Or shit, just give us a shout out.
That's right. Yeah, that'd be good enough for me, man.
Okay, yeah. Not to take away from the Motley Crue, but of course, I was growing up, that was my favorite band, but there was so many good 80s bands. Another one up there for me was Rat, and remember back in the day we would buy Hit Parader magazine,
right?
So that was always a battle. Who's the best, Rat or Motley Crue?
Rat, Crange magazine,
right?
No, and you're right. I mean, I bought all the Rat albums, and
Rat was a solid band.
They were solid. Warren DeMartini on that guitar, I was
And Bobby Blotzer was a hell of a drummer.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to take anything away from any of them. They were all great.
Right.
And that's the thing, the 80s was just so full of great musicians, you know?
And,
great bands.
80s was a decade of decadence, excess, over the top. And that didn't stop with, the partying. It was the music too, the musicians. Man, you had some amazing guitarists, amazing drummers. And I remember we'd go see them live, and you'd look forward to the guitar solo or the drum solo. It was fucking badass. But back then, everyone had a good stage show.
Everybody did.
And, not a lot of bands do that now.
No.
Which is okay, but if they have the music to back it up, that's cool.
Yeah, no, and I agree, because, in the 80s, you looked forward to going to the concert because you're like, okay, what am I going to see on the stage tonight? What are they going to bring? And I'll use this as an example. Every time I went to see Iron Maiden, I'm like, what Eddie shenanigans are going to go on tonight?
Right. And another good one from the 80s that had a great stage show was Mr. Ronnie James Dio.
Oh, definitely. He always brought it with some kind of pyrotechnics.
Fucking 50-foot dragon in the background.
Right.
Something.
Right.
He had that whip that would glow in the dark.
Yeah.
He was fucking badass.
Oh, God bless his soul. He was. Ronnie James Dio was a badass.
And you know what I love about Ronnie James Dio is I'd seen some interviews with him, and the man loved his beer. He would always have a dark beer.
Yep, I saw the same thing whenever he was interviewed, and he'd offer you one.
Right. He seemed like such a down-to-earth person, where a lot of these musicians, I guess it went to their head and they were fucking dicks or whatever.
Right. Well, the fame and fortune, like
right.
I'm above you now.
And a lot of those who are above people, where are they now?
That's right.
And it's funny because I see like fans post interviews and shit, like they see bands on the street, and whenever they see Vince Neil always stops and talks to them. And
hey, and
to me, that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool, because you know what? Without the fans, they wouldn't be where they got.
Exactly.
It's the fans that lifted you up and put the money in your pocket.
Okay, aside from Motley Crue and Rat, what was another one of your favorite 80 bands?
Okay, one of my favorite 80 bands, it would have to be Dokken. And I say Dokken, and not so much for Don Dokken, for George Lynch.
But they're another one of those bands, they just had that combination.
They did. And once they started breaking up, they lost it.
Right. I mean, George Lynch experienced some good things with Lynch Mob, but it wasn't the perfect combination. That's why he kept changing the lineup.
That's right.
Same with Don Dokken. He went back to the music he made with George Lynch. Yes. And they rode that.
Now, I just thought George Lynch was such a phenomenal guitarist that
yes.
I would watch all his instructional videos, and I would play Mr. Scary over and over.
It's fucking badass.
And I'm like, and then even on their first album, Breaking the Chains, I would listen, and I'm like, damn, this the tone he would get, the
yes.
echo, the reverb, and his setup. I was like, man, this guy is just amazing.
I saw an old video when they were first getting their start, and it's funny because a lot of these bands were flocking to LA, and they formed and they moved to Germany. I guess Don Dokken wanted to try something different, I don't know, but they were like on a German kind of American bandstand.
Right.
They were all young kids, and I can't even remember the song, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, he probably thought, well, because the German explosion was happening, if we go to Germany, they'll think we're a German band and they'll give us a listen to, eh? And
or they'll think, oh, one of the American rock and roll bands.
Right, there you go. It could be the same.
I'm sure in Germany it's the same, because in the 80s they had remember the Moscow Music Peace Festival, and
right.
those people poured in to see these 80s bands.
Of course, I mean,
but like in Japan, even now 80s music's still really popular.
80s music's still popular here, man.
Right, but it all depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the little I guess you want to say kind of cult followings now.
Right. And it's cool because like we go to a lot of these 80s bands, they still come to New Mexico, and it's awesome because we could see them, these bands that we saw in the 80s in the big arenas, we could see them in smaller venues, which is great. And
I prefer the smaller venues.
Right. And we see a lot of the crowds our age,
yeah.
But you do see the young kids coming out to see that.
Yeah, I mean, because, they hear the albums, and of course some of these young kids through mom and dad.
Right.
Hear
Just like my kids.
the old albums, and they're like, holy shit, that's some badass hard rockin' music, you know?
Yep. I remember whenever my kids were small, we'd be cruising and I'd jam Motley, Rat, whatever, LA Guns, and tell them, this is this band, this is whoever. And then I'd quiz them, who is this?
Yeah, I get educated.
All right.
Yeah, no, but we had some great bands in the 80s. So on that note, another one of my favorite bands, and they weren't a popular band, but it's their tone, and because I wanted to be a guitar player in a rock band, I would listen predominantly to bands that had like heavy, thick, dark guitar.
Yes.
And they did couple cover tunes, but it was a band called Rough Cut.
Rough Cut, I remember them.
And to me, that album had such a phenomenal guitar sound, you know, especially when they did A Piece of My Heart.
Yes.
By Janis Joplin. That song, I'm like, damn, they killed it.
Yep.
But they didn't get the credit that I thought they deserved.
There was so many 80s bands that I thought were great, but they, like you said, they didn't get the credit because, bands like Motley Crue, Rat, and Dokken, they dominated the airwaves.
Of course.
They dominated MTV when MTV was about music.
That's because they were the ones that opened the floodgates.
Right. Because let's see, what's another good band? Well, a band that's near and dear to my brother and I is Randy Castillo and what was the first band?
Stone Fury?
Stone Fury.
Yeah.
To me, they were awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
Right. And of course, everyone says, oh, Led Zeppelin wannabes. I don't give a fuck.
No.
They were badass.
They were good. They were really good. And that they're, you know, we love them because Randy Castillo was a New Mexico boy.
That's right. Right here from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Even spent some time with Motley Crue for their new Tattoo album.
Yes, he did. He played in
Ozzy,
different bands, you know.
He was a great drummer.
Yeah, he was, and he put New Mexico on the map.
Right. I used to love we have the Isleta Casino, and when you go into I don't know what it's called, the concert hall, they have like a glass display with one of his drum kits and the albums he's been on and stuff, and I don't know if they still have it, but I thought that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So yeah, God bless Randy Castillo. Okay, so now that we're talking about that, I'm going to take us back a bit because there was one band when I was in high school that I had to go back and learn about, and it was Black Sabbath.
Oh, right.
When Mob Rules came out, I thought, well, this is their first album, and that was with Dio. And
right, that was before. That was after the whole Ozzy era.
Yes, so I had to go back and find out really who Black Sabbath was and educate myself. But
and I did too, because when Ozzy went solo, I'm like, man, this motherfucker's great.
Right.
I didn't know he was in Black Sabbath, like you said, until somebody told you. Then you're like, what? Let me go back and check this out.
Yeah, you're like, oh, let me go back and listen to every fucking Black Sabbath album there is. And I saw the progression with Ozzy, and they made some great music.
Yes.
I'm going to say those guys were the pioneers that started it all,
Of course, but they're more in the 70s era.
Right, but they did influence a lot of the 80s bands.
Of course, every decade is influenced by the decade before.
Right.
Or a lot of these good musicians that are really knowledgeable, they're even influenced by people older than that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, they listen to maybe some of the old blues players and
exactly, and blues is what sprung rock and roll.
Of course. Well, speaking of blues, I watched a documentary on Amazon, and it's called "Indians That Rock the World." Mm-hmm. And that takes you back to the Louisiana Delta and some of the tribes there. And, people are like, tribes in Louisiana, that was black people. Well, some of them mixed in with the natives, I suppose.
Right.
But they covered Randy Castillo. And if you guys get a chance, check that documentary out. And it's going to take you how, like you said, the blues influenced rock and roll today. Yes. And I just thought it was interesting.
Speaking of blues and stuff, one of my favorite movies, Crossroads.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Steve Vai.
Yes, that's another one.
Yeah.
And I've seen him on some interviews recently on YouTube, and he's aged, he's matured, and he's a technical player.
Right. He's well educated. He's a very smart person.
Yeah.
But he is amazing.
Still a badass on guitar.
Yep. You see him up on stage back in the day with his long hair, just jamming away, and you think when they do an interview, he's gonna be like, "Hey, dude."
No.
Not at all. He's a smart dude, very educated, very well spoken.
Right. Yeah. No, he's very impressive.
And he, like you said, he's technical. He's kind of by the book. He knows the guitar ins and outs, just like Paul Gilbert.
Of course, Mr. Paul Gilbert, another great guitarist, who, of course, in the 80s with Mr. Big.
Yes, Racer X.
Racer X, yep. Yes. And let's not forget the band that crossed the pond, not the Beatles. The Beatles did it for another generation, but this band that crossed the pond when I was in high school,
Oh, yeah.
fucking blew me away.
Blew us all away.
Leopard.
Yeah.
Man, those guys, even today, I've seen them numerous times too.
Yes.
And they're phenomenal musicians. And
Yes.
and there again, the original band with High and Dry, that whole fucking album from the opening to the ending is just like one kick-ass album.
Yes, yes, and it was strange because when their first album came out, On Through the Night, they were just young kids.
Yeah, and I, after I heard High and Dry, I was like, who are these guys? And I went back and bought On Through the Night, and it still had some good, hard punching songs.
Right.
I was like, well, why didn't I hear about this album first?
Right. On Through the Night was good. They were just getting their start.
Right.
High and Dry was fucking phenomenal.
Right.
But a lot of people argue that what broke them in America was Pyromania, the song "Too Late for Love."
Yeah, no, I'm going to disagree with that.
No. So am I. That's what really got them the radio play.
Oh, of course, but they're already selling out arenas and albums with High and Dry.
Well, not only that, if you remember when they came through Albuquerque, they were opening, and the headlining band got booed.
Right, yeah.
Because they wanted Def
Like,
Leppard.
we want to see more Def Leppard, man. They were fucking bad, and they still are badass. But yeah, I'm gonna disagree with it that the Pyromania broke them. Now, the Pyromania was their most successful album.
Mainstream. Oh, well,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's most successful.
Well, I would say that because it got them on the radio.
It broke them. But I would think that one of the ones that really, cemented them as a big band was Hysteria.
Right.
Because after, it took 5 years to make or more, and there was just, I think that was like their life's work because they
Yeah.
had some great tunes, like the song Hysteria.
Yeah.
That's just the guitar work, the lyrics.
The whole album. You're right. Hysteria, that's, as far as musician-wise, that's where they matured.
Right.
That was their their rite of passage.
Right. That was the pinnacle where they just hit it, and just what they went through to get there, because that's when Rick Allen had his accident and lost his arm.
Right.
And man, you got to give those guys kudos because they could have got another drummer easy.
They could have.
But it was like, we're doing this with him, not without him.
Right. And of course they said they made him audition again, which that's cool. But when it all comes down to it, they were a tight-knit band and they knew where the magic was.
Right.
Yeah. And you're right. Hysteria is a good one. Speaking of Hysteria, the song Love Bites, that was supposed to be a country song.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
That was written for country, but they took it, and I do believe, if I remember right, Mutt Lange, who was a producer,
Right.
he wrote it for his wife Shania Twain,
Oh, okay.
and it didn't work out. So they said, "Well, let us have a go at it." So they took that song, which was meant to be a country song, and turned it into a pop rock song.
Wow. And it worked out
It
great
worked
for
out
them.
for them, yeah, because that song is a badass song too.
Yep.
And yeah, you hear people there. A lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, I know Def Leppard, Love Bites," and yeah.
Yeah, and of course their tour to support that album was phenomenal, and it's still historical because they were the first band to put the stage in the middle of the arena.
That's right, in the round.
And I saw them here in Albuquerque. Did you see them for that tour?
I did.
Who opened up another great 80s band?
Tesla. And I saw them in Virginia for that.
Okay.
I was still in the military. And, well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I don't think they were the first band to do it in the round. I think Rod Stewart was.
Well, Rock.
Well, okay, Rock, okay.
Yeah, well, that,
Rod
okay.
Stewart don't count.
No, Rod Stewart, he's a great artist.
No, he is, but
and
we're
he has
talking
just
80s
that voice,
rock,
right?
you know.
But we're not going to get into Do You Think I'm Sexy?
Right.
Well, I'll talk about that later when I go to the bar. But
That's right.
That's a whole different podcast.
Wake up, Maggie. I think I got something to say to you.
No, I think I got something to show you.
Yeah, there you go. So wake the fuck up.
But anyway, I saw them with their stage in the center, and that just fucking blew me away.
You're right. I did. I never seen anything like that, and I was like, man, where did these guys think of that? You know?
And their laser show, their light show was on point. And Tesla, they're another band where their first album just exploded.
Oh my God. I remember coming home from school and seeing Modern Day Cowboy.
Yes.
I was like, whoa, what the hell? That video was...
I saw it one night, I believe, on Headbangers Ball.
Right.
And I was like, they caught my attention.
Right.
The next day I went to the music store. I think we were living in Gallup at the time. We were both young. That's where we grew up.
Right.
We had Record Bar, I believe, though. That's what it was. I
That's
went
what it
in
was.
there and they didn't know what the hell I was talking about.
They're like, who?
Yeah, and then luckily my cousin worked there a few weeks later. They're like, hey, you remember that band you came and asked about? We got the album. So, of course, I went and bought it right away. Of course.
And on that Modern Day Cowboy, it was that guitar lick.
Yeah.
That opening guitar lick just grabs you.
You know, Tesla is one of my favorite bands, but to this day, that album, Mechanical Resonance, is one of my favorite.
Yeah. I gotta agree. Well, you know, we've taken up enough of your time. We hope you enjoyed us talking about the 80s music.
And we haven't even scratched the surface.
I know, you know, and this is what we love. So, you know, maybe later we'll do another episode with 80s music, because we could go on and on and on.
And drop us a line. Tell us, I know we've left out so many, but tell us who's your favorite band.
Right.
And I'm sure we remember them. We'll talk about them.
Right. And you can tell us by emailing us, and you can email us at latenightwithlarry55@gmail.com. That's all one word, latenightwithlarry55. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoyed hearing us talk about the 80s.
Yes. Rock and roll. You guys have a good one.
Rock and roll, baby.